Okay, and I'll share the screen again. So this week is Tradition 10. Gosh, we've nearly came to the end of this already. It's went by really quickly. So in Tradition 10 is Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. Hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. So this is a really good one, I think. This is one that does cause a lot of controversy in meetings, whether people bring out outside issues into the fellowship, and I've seen it happen quite a lot. But we'll start off with the long form, which is in the 12 and 12, page 192 of the 12 and 12, is no AA group or member should ever, in such a way as to implicate AA, express any opinion on outside controversial issues, particularly those of politics, alcohol reform, or sectarian religion. The Alcoholics Anonymous group oppose no one. Concerning such matters, they can express no views, whatever. And so I think this has just been put up just to let us know the next three traditions that we're doing. So Tradition 10 is outside issues. Tradition 11 is anonymity, attraction rather than promotion. And the last tradition is Tradition 12, principles before personalities. And we've been looking at the principles, which are behind all the traditions. And Tradition 1 was unity. And Tuija said from the very beginning, if we remember anything from this tradition study, it's to remember, this one, unity. And Tradition 2 is leadership. Tradition 3 is eligibility. Tradition 4 is autonomy. Tradition 5 is carrying the message. Tradition 6, outside enterprises. Tradition 7, we are self-supporting. Tradition 8 is giving it away. Tradition 9, organisation, and the one we're on today is Tradition 10, and that's on outside opinions. And next week will be Tradition 11, public relations, and the last one to finish off is anonymity. And then we have the how and the why of it, the bookends. Why is unity, and Tradition 2, 3, 4 and 5 are all about the group and how the group runs, and 6, 7 and 8 are all about money, and 9, 10 and 11 are all the things that we shouldn't do. The antis is down here as and anonymity is the how. So the homework last week was to read Tradition 9, so I guess in our homework this week will be to read Tradition 10 and the 12 and 12, which I've been keeping up to date with myself, and it's teaching me so much. However, this one that we're going to read today is Tradition 10, which is in the language of the heart, and I think it's what page is it, Karen? Is it 89 or 89?
89.
Page 89. I was having a look at it last night, so that was a good memory then. But however, it's up here anyway, so you don't have to follow it in the book. So, Tradition 10, September 1948. To most of us, Alcoholics Anonymous has become as solid as the rock of Gibraltar. We like to believe that it will soon be as well known and just as enduring as that historic landmark. We enjoy this pleasant conviction because nothing has yet occurred to disturb it. We reason that we must hang together or die. Hence we take for granted our continued unity as a movement. But should we? Though God has bestowed upon us great favours, and though we are bound by stronger ties of love and necessity than most societies, is it prudent to suppose that automatically these great gifts and attributes shall be ours forever? If we are worthy, we shall probably continue to enjoy them. So the real question is, how shall we always be worthy of our present blessings? Seen from this point of view, our AA traditions are those attitudes and practices by which we may deserve, as a movement, a long life and a useful one. To this end, none could be more vital than our 10th tradition, for it deals with the subject of controversy, serious controversy. On the other side of the world, millions have died, even recently in religious dissension. Other millions have died in political controversy. The end is not yet. Nearly everybody in the world has turned reformer. Each group, society and nation is saying to the other, you must do as we say or else. Political controversy and reform by compulsion have reached an all-time high, and eternal seemingly are the flames of religious dissension. Being like other men and women, how can we expect to remain forever immune from these perils? Probably we shall not. At length, we must meet them all. We cannot flee from them, nor ought we try. If these challenges do come, we shall, I am sure, go out to meet them gladly and unafraid. That will be the acid test of our worth. Our best defence, this surely lies in the formation of a tradition respecting serious controversy, so powerful that neither the weakness of person nor the strain and strife of our troubled times can harm Alcoholics Anonymous. We know that AA must continue to live, or else many of us and many of our fellow alcoholics throughout the world will surely resume the hopeless journey to oblivion. That must never be. As though by some deep and compelling instinct, we have thus far avoided serious controversies. Save minor and healthy growing pains, we are at peace among ourselves. And because we have thus far adhered to our sole aim, the whole world regards us favourably. May God grant us the wisdom and fortitude ever to sustain an unbreakable unity. Wow, that's pretty good, that, isn't it? There's a lot in that. And I don't know about anybody else, but I see not a lot of it, but, there is a lot of sometimes controversy gets brought in, and it's not often, but I've seen it a lot in some meetings more than others, and you can see how dangerous it is, and I think just moving on to the illustrated pamphlet, I had a look at this morning, and it really just shows it really well, so it does. You'll see this and here's the guy up there, and he's the 10th tradition. It says Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. And you've got the guy up there, he looks like he's been sharing his experience, strength and hope. And it says, and so thanks to AA, I have maintained a happy sobriety for 10 years, I thank you. And then he says, but before I leave, it's like the last word, isn't it? I know I speak for all of AA when I protest the current legislation before the Congress. I refer to that infamous piece of rubbish known as House Bill number X71112. And then he really goes for it in the next picture. He says it must not pass. And to that end, I am sending a telegram in the name of AA and our group. And then that just says it all really underneath there, doesn't it? What do you need to say about that? We all have a different opinion on what he's just said there, and it's just caused utter chaos in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if that had to carry on, and if that had to keep happening, the newcomer would just leave. And that's what this guy at the end here, he's like, oh, how could anyone get sober or stay sober in an outfit like that? And he's putting his hat down and his collar up and he's saying, I'm out of here, And that is not the message that we want to carry in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. For me, that especially is definitely not, And that is how dangerous it actually is, and it said that there in the language of the heart and the traditions there as well, it says how dangerous it is, it's serious controversy, not just controversy. It's very serious because that can keep that guy away. That could kill that guy. He might never come back to AA now, But, and try to put in here, I think this came from Living the Traditions. They work for individuals as well as for groups. This came from the AA Grapevine in March 1982. It said Tradition 10. Here I began to understand that as an AA member, I owed certain disciplines, obligations and responsibilities to AA as a whole. I could speak out as an individual on any matter with which I was concerned, but as an AA member, I had to operate within certain limits, try to engage the mind before opening the mouth. Yep, and how great that is too. So, with that now, Karen has done a homework and has got us the daily reflections for today. Karen, I think, sorry, I put it down that you were going to read 3, I think. I don't know if you've already discussed that, but if you want to, that's fine.
Well, I've chosen 2. I can read 3 because there are 4 altogether. Because I've written quite a lot from an interpretation from listening to speakers and from
you just go with what you've
12.
got. Go with what you've got.
Okay.
Karen, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. There are 3 pages in our daily 4 pages, sorry, in our daily reflections, which address Tradition 10, and they start on page 310, and I'll just name that one, the unbroken tradition, and there were our survival, with little sections taken from the 12 and 12, which I'll be using possibly when I read. But on October the 30th, page 312, the motto, live and let live, is one I particularly liked. Oh, and I wanted to say thank you, Jill, for highlighting that serious, controversy. This isn't just little arguments or funny cartoons, this is life and death. And it just brought home to me then when you highlighted that word, So October the 30th, never since it began has Alcoholics Anonymous been divided by a major controversial issue. That amazed me when looking at that picture, especially of everyone arguing, and thinking of a lot of people I know outside of AA, and when they tell me what they were like when they were drinking, and I know what I was like, it's just amazing that to be reading this and to experience it in groups, how we all get on so well, and what you read from the language of the heart through this, God bestowed us this great favor of changing us so that we could live and let live. Sorry, I'm deviating you. So nor has our fellowship ever publicly taken sides on any question in an embattled world. This, however, has been no earned virtue. It could almost be said we were born with it. So long as we don't argue these matters privately, it is a cinch we never shall publicly, taken from the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 176. Do I remember that I have a right to my opinion, but that others don't have to share it? And that's something I really sort of take to heart, because I always had to let people know my opinion. And if they, particularly in the family, if they disagreed with me, I'd keep on and on until, I'd wear them down, because I always believed that I was right and I had to change them. That was my duty, long before I picked up a drink, this defect. And I finish this because I'm jumping about a bit, sorry. So I don't have the right to share it. That's the spirit of live and let live. The Serenity Prayer reminds me, with God's help, to accept the things I cannot change. I am still trying to change. Am I still trying to change others? And I think that's a really good question to ask myself daily. When it comes to courage to change the things I can, Do I remember that my opinions are mine and yours are yours? Am I still afraid to be me? When it comes to wisdom, to know the difference, do I remember that my opinion comes from my experience? If I have a know-it-all attitude, aren't I being deliberately controversial? And I know I used to be. So I'll just share this with you to make it a bit more relatable to how I use it in my personal life as well. When I finished teaching, I had a little part-time job in the library, and I also ran Airbnb for a short period. It wasn't a money maker. I was too generous because it was something. I was still in that phase of wanting people to think well of me, and have good results and be hostess, getting all these ticks. So it was a money loser for me. I learned the hard way. But you had a little motto, and my motto was live and let live. And I thought I need to practice this because I could have all sorts of people coming into my home with all different opinions, and the old me would have been in arguments, and they would have been going home, and I would have been struck off, So I really had to put that into practice in my personal life as well as in AA meetings. And then the other one I liked, October the 31st, avoiding controversy. All history affords us the spectacle of striving nations and groups finally torn asunder because they were designed for or tempted into controversy. Others fell apart because of sheer self-righteousness, while trying to enforce upon the rest of mankind some millennium of their own specification. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 176. As an AA member and sponsor, I know I can cause real damage if I yield to temptation and give opinions and advice on another's medical, marital, or religious problems. I'm not a doctor, counsellor, or lawyer. I cannot tell anyone how he or she should live. However, I can share how I came through similar situations without drinking, and how AA steps and traditions helped me in dealing with my life. So those 2 pages have been, reminded me that although I'm now living alone and my life is a lot smaller, my world is a lot smaller. In other ways, it's bigger through Zoom, but I still have to practice this. It's reminded me it's still as important that it becomes embedded in me as a principle, even if I'm not dealing with many people during the day. Even more so because I'm not used to interacting as much. So, I could go back quite easily into being self-righteous. This is my way. So I think I have to, I'm really glad of this tradition. I think Bill had such vision. And then I've picked up some points. My sponsor asked me to do this for her, and I found it last night, and I've just shortened it because it was too long, on Tradition 10. And I took most of this from the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, but dipping into the language of the heart as well, and daily reflections. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be brought into public controversy. This tradition protects the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous from any involvement or influence or any form of controversy and any form of controversial topics being discussed at an AA meeting, a bit like the cartoon. It suggests that it's stressing. Sorry, I can't read this part. That we adhere to this tradition because when a member is representing AA in a public capacity as well, any outside issues should be avoided because it would bring the AA name under ill repute, and it reminds us to stick to our primary purpose rather than getting diverted. And Tradition 10 also strongly suggests that we of AA do not become affiliated with groups outside of the fellowship, thus ensuring our protection from any outside influences or debate within the room. And it's Bill sort of mostly stresses it's imperative to ensure that the spiritual climate of harmony it remains in the rooms of an AA meeting. For the newcomer, which links it to the attraction rather than promotion, you know, like the cartoon really, which I hadn't seen before today, but it just brought it home to me how all the traditions are sort of interlinked, you know, the unity and the attraction. If we were all disagreeing and arguing, I wouldn't want to have come into a room. Oh, my battery, sorry. Bear with me a moment. I shall rectify this quickly. Not very organised today, sorry. So that would have frightened and upset me. I was very vulnerable and terrified when I came in. And if I'd heard people arguing and seen angry faces, I certainly wouldn't have stayed. You know, I saw happy, calm, serene people who were smiling and offering me the hand of friendship, just like our responsibility statement. So I feel that Bill was really stressing this by all of the traditions, keeping AA safe for us, and that members demonstrate respect for each other, that we all stand united, again being linked to Tradition 1, in our aim to help the still suffering alcoholic. And then this harmonious climate and atmosphere can only transpire if AA members keep any personal opinions outside topics, outside the rooms, because very often, you know, and refrain from any religious, as our preamble says, sect or denomination, politics, or any other cause, however worthy, that our AA as an organisation has its own right. And as this disease is progressive and life-threatening, it's our members' responsibility to protect this fellowship at all costs, and to remember our primary purpose and aim is to carry the message to the still suffering alcoholic, and to remain sober in order to do so. And then it says, if at an AA group, religious or political topics were to be discussed, however worthy, I may be repeating myself, sorry, there's a likelihood of provoking arguments among people, as we all have differing opinions and ideas. So this is to be avoided. And the 12 and 12 also reminds us that members do not argue such matters privately. And in that case, if they are representing, if they don't argue it privately, there's less likelihood of them arguing it publicly if they are a representative. And our aim is for the guarantee that it's so vital to stick together and remain united for our cause. And that reminds me of how, again, all the traditions are interlinked. And if our, let's see. We are warned that this is imperative if we are to survive as a healthy fellowship, which attracts newcomers and may inspire old-timers, as we also need to be attracted back if our enthusiasm wanes. As I said minded. So it links with tradition 11, attraction, not promotion. And we reminded as well in the 12 and 12 of the Washingtonian Society, a group which started in Baltimore in the 1800s, which was a movement not too dissimilar to AA, composed of alcoholics trying to help and support other alcoholics to stay sober. And they initially had a good success rate, but sadly this society gradually allowed other organizations to become part of the movement. They affiliated with politicians, religious reformers, and they eventually became temperance. Sorry about my telephone. It never rings, only when I don't want it to. Apparently, they eventually became involved with temperance crusaders, the aim being an attempt to reform the American public of the dangers of alcohol and drinking or serving alcohol. So, of course, this eventually destroyed the Washingtonians as they were known. So Bill highlights this as an example in his writings to warn us of the dangers and perils which could harm or even destroy AA. And I've written in Bill's attempt to remind us that we need to learn that if we don't learn and make use of history and the mistakes which have harmed such societies, the Washingtonians, how the impact it had on them could happen to AA, and that we would, for us to avoid such foolish risks of combining AA with any other organization or outside organization. And I've written, we are so fortunate, because it touched me today how fortunate we are to be guided by these traditions, and that link in the daily reflections I didn't read, an unbroken tradition on page 310. You know, I'm grateful for the energies that have never been scattered, but focused instead on our individual sobriety. And this thread connects me to Bill W. and Dr. Bob. And I felt really, it really touched me today. It stood out to me more than ever how important it was that they worked so hard to keep this alive and keep AA still available and harmonious for us to attend and to come. And it just blew me away, really. And I feel that Bill gave us these traditions, even though he came up against great objection from a lot of people, especially the long forms, which people history tells us, didn't like. But they were designed to keep AA safe for the future generations to come and secure AA's effectiveness in our primary purpose, to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. So if we were to ignore these traditions, we would be placing AA in jeopardy. And also later, we heard of the Oxford group, which contributed greatly to the 12 steps of our AA program. Yet due to some of the members, more religious members, many alcoholics were not welcome to join this group, especially if they weren't particularly religious themselves, or they weren't the right kind of alcoholic. Hence, the breaking away of AA from the Oxford group, and AA finally eventually becoming an organisation in its own right, with its own cause. And that reminds me of, like, shoemaker, stick to thy best, or sticking to the one cause and not being diverted by outside influences. And I think with Bill putting these traditions in place, it's to enlighten us to these early mistakes, that our unified approach is paramount if we are to succeed, to keep our spiritual purpose above all else, one alcoholic helping another alcoholic become sober, as it was initially intended. And that's, I'm sorry it's been a bit chaotic, but that's all I've got today, and I'm just very grateful and thankful for these traditions. And it did remind me of a lady who was in my first home group that had a very strong opinion on alcohol being sold in supermarkets, and she would bring this topic up time and time again, but thankfully nobody got engaged, and people let it go. They had the wisdom to let it go and not for it to become a debate, because obviously, you know, as our big book reminds us, we shouldn't be anti-alcohol, because some people can safely drink and it can do more harm. So that's been my experience. I leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks for all that. Gosh, that was a lot of work you put into that. Thanks very much for that. Thank you. And yeah, all the controversy. I was sitting when you were talking about it, and I was thinking of, you know, the biggest issue here in Glasgow, you know, that's controversial is, you know, and it's football. It's a massive controversy in the Glasgow meetings, especially because of the Rangers Celtic thing, you know, the Catholic Protestant. If you support Celtic, you're a Catholic, you know, Rangers, you're a Protestant, and it's a massive thing. You know, some of the men will even come in, you know, wearing their shirts and all that, you know, and it always causes controversy. And groups have to keep on top of it, which they are very good at doing. You know, they are very good at doing that. And I just rejoined my old home group in Glasgow, and I've joined the WhatsApp group, you know, and one of the first or second messages that came into it had a picture of the Celtic Football Club emblem on it, you know, and I thought, oh my goodness, seriously. But straight after it, luckily enough, someone else in the group said that's inappropriate, and it got deleted, you know, and he apologised to the group. But it's out there, isn't it, you know? But at least they're staying on top of it, and that's good, because I know my group does work with the traditions, you know, they definitely do adhere to the traditions, and that's why I like the group so much, because in Glasgow that is something they're working very hard on, you know, not just in Alcoholics Anonymous, but outside, to try and break that sectarianism, you know, so we can't bring that into AA, that's for sure. But thanks, Karen, thanks very much, and welcome Raza and Shannon, nice to see you, and we've got a little bit left to do before we can go to shares, so I'll do the share screen again, and I think it's the checklist, which is interesting. I thought this was really interesting. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. And I realise now, going through this with all the other weeks as well, that this is actually questions that we should be asking ourselves rather than asking our group, isn't it? And one says, do I ever give the impression that there really is an AA opinion on doctors, psychiatrists, churches, hospitals, jails, alcohol, prescribed medications, other drugs, other 12-step programmes, vitamins, Al-Anon, the federal or state government? Wow, that's a lot, isn't it? That's a lot. And I think I can think of hearing all of that in some meetings. 2, can I honestly share my own personal experience concerning any of those without giving the impression that I'm stating the AA opinion? And 3, what in AA history gave rise to our 10th tradition? And that's like just what you were talking about. You were just talking about all of that, Karen, there. 4, what would AA be without this tradition? Where would I be? Well, I'd probably be in jail. I would probably be one of the ones that was fighting at the bottom there in the illustrated pamphlet, you know, so that's where I would be. I know that for a fact. 5, do I breach this or any of its supporting traditions in subtle, perhaps unconscious ways? And 6, how can I manifest the spirit of this tradition in my personal life outside AA and inside AA? Well, funnily enough, I was just sitting thinking that as we were going through all this, how can I put that into my personal life? I can put it in definitely, all the time. I should be putting that into my personal life, and realising that my opinion, I can have it, but everybody else doesn't need to like it. And I don't need to like everybody else's opinions either, And there was a bit in the language of the heart that it said, didn't it? It said about keeping our mouth closed. Yep, that's definitely what I should be doing too. 7, should the meeting secretary intervene to remind EE members about this tradition if a member starts criticising one political party compared to others or favouring a religion over others? Well, that's interesting because when things like that happen in my group, what they do is they just usually will say, remember the preamble, and that usually stops it. But any more than that, I don't know yet. So, something to think about anyway, for sure, isn't it? So, if anybody'd like to come in and share, we've got 20 minutes left. Please do, plenty of time.
I would love to, and thank you so much, Karen. That was so wonderful. The research that you've done and the readings that you've chosen. And I was just sitting here thinking, I'm glad the book study was this morning instead of tomorrow morning, so I don't have to travel with all these books, because it would definitely make my suitcase over 50 pounds. But it's wonderful to get into all of these different readings and to continue learning and to bring the traditions more alive for me and more interesting, to be able to pass it along. It's not a favorite group meeting. So I've heard a couple of really good shares in my home group where I could really relate. So, and I've heard some that, just, it's like, oh, it's a tradition, but so many things stood out to me. And like you said, Karen, they're all kind of linked together, but the tolerance, learning from others, and the open-mindedness, it reminds us of that, to be able to learn from others, to be open-minded, and to let everyone have their own opinion. And even down to personally at the family holiday dinner table, you grow up the same, your family thinks you're going to think the same, and everyone thinks differently. And that's where controversy can start. And it's never a good thing. And it's kind of like the illustrated pamphlet a lot of times, most times, all the time. But yeah, just the honesty. Oh, and something else really was fascinating to me. My husband shares regularly, and on 311, our survival, which you didn't capture, he often says this, and I always wondered where it came from. And it's right here. The honesty expressed by the members of AA in meetings has the power to open my mind. Nothing can block the flow of energy that honesty creates with it. And that is such a powerful statement. And he says that, and he never refers to where it comes from, but now I know. And getting into this literature is just fascinating for me. And letting everyone have their own beliefs and having an open mind and seeing what I can take from other people and their beliefs. It is just a great part of my own recovery and growth. And being guided, like you said, the trial and error of people that have gone before us. So grateful that we don't have to trudge that road and try to figure these things out and have the controversy and chaos, because that's something that I truly avoid and truly drank against. So thanks for letting me share. And thank you so much, Jill, for taking over today, and Karen for your wonderful, wonderful share.
Thanks, Deanna. Thanks for everything you shared there. It was great to hear it. I hope you have a nice holiday when you go away tomorrow. Glad you don't need to take all those books as well, eh? Thank you. Anybody else like to come in and share?
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Jill, for taking the meeting, and thank you, Karen, for your share, your readings and stuff. Really good, really good. The thing that I want to talk about tradition 10 is that it says public controversy. And there's a difference between public controversy and controversial issues within AA. The reason that this has really come to my attention is several months ago, I did a few meetings that later on I was told that AA does not wish to engage in any controversy, and it's any public controversy. They chose to leave that the public out, and made it basically reprimanded me for bringing a topic that was within AA but was controversial. And that, to me, that would be the same thing as someone addressing sex in AA. Sex is talked about in the big book. And it's talked about in our literature, and a lot of people see that as a really controversial issue, but that's not forbidden from discussing in a meeting, because it is contained within our literature. And this, I'm not going to go into a lot of it, but this particular meeting I used literature from the grapevine rather than from the big book. And even that was brought into question as to whether or not it was acceptable, even though it was AA literature and it supported the cause I was bringing up. And it brought, I got a lot of really good feedback from attendees of the meeting that it was really important, and they thanked me for bringing it and asked me to please do it again. But I've been forbidden. And so I think that it's really important that we really stick to exactly what it says. And it says public controversy, not internal. There are things that shouldn't be brought up, but this was a really important issue that has affected a lot of people's sobriety. And I'm really passionate about it. But, thanks to the program and the principles and the traditions, even though I was told not to do it, I was able to let it go. I still talk about it because I feel that it was not appropriate for them to tell me not to do it again. That they just misinterpreted the tradition. But I have to accept that, I did what I did, and the message got out and it got shared, and, it had an impact. But it saddens me that people take this, remove words or put words in to our traditions and change what can be said or done in a meeting or in the program. So that's what I've got on that, ladies. Thank you so much again.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks for sharing all that and your honesty with it and sharing it as well. Thanks, Mary. Thank you. Shanna, would you like to come in and share with us?
Hey, yeah, I'm Shanna, recovered alcoholic, Huntsville, Alabama. Thank you, Jill, for the meeting. And I just wanted to say, hey, and I hope y'all have a good day. And thank you, Karen, for the readings, and Jill for taking the meeting. And the traditions are just so important. It's funny, but I thought it was kind of cool because, like, every time in my early sobriety, I would always want to read the traditions. Every meeting, they would say, okay, who wants to read? And I would always pick the traditions for some reason. And now I know, as time has gone on, I don't know, maybe unconsciously I knew that AA is here, but we need to stay together as a group and honor these traditions too. I've learned that the steps apply to the individual, the traditions apply to the group as a whole. And we have to really make sure that we're honoring the traditions and coming together and looking out for the still suffering alcoholic. And we have to understand that what we do and what we say, sorry, you guys got allergies going on, what we do and what we say can have an impact on that person coming in the rooms. And it's just so super important, the example that we set and how we act and present and represent ourselves as a group. If I was brand new and I was walking into a meeting for the first time, which when I used to do that, and if there was no unity, no camaraderie, no bondedness together between the members, if it was just like everyone was in disarray and there was no rules or regulations or you know what I'm referring to, I wouldn't have felt like that was really unification. And so the fact that there's a group, I do go to one in-person meeting a week here, and it's on Friday evenings, and it's just so important that they honor the traditions and they look out for the group as a whole, because if the group falls, then where do we have to go, right? So it's just real important. And in the beginning, I didn't really study the traditions. I was in the steps pretty much, and then started getting into tradition studies and learning about the traditions better. And it was awesome to learn how important and why they're so important to my sobriety, right? So now today I can encapsulate the traditions and the steps together as a whole. And that book is like my textbook for living. And I'm just so grateful for it and so blessed. And I hope y'all have a great day. And it's just summertime, man. It's super hot and steamy, but it's all good. We're sober. Thanks, Jill.
Thanks, Shanna. Great to see you and hear you as well. Thank you. Raza, would you like to come and share? Go, Raza. Nice to see you.
Very nice to see all of you ladies. I'm very glad to be here, and thank you, Karen, thank you, Jill, and thank you, Diana, and thank you, Mary, and thank you, Laura, and thank you, Shanna, for being here and just for having this meeting going. I know I wasn't really around for long, but for me, this tradition in particular is kind of quite. I have to exercise a lot of self-control to maintain this tradition, because I have very strong political opinions, which I'm not going to express because of the tradition. But I suppose it always makes me, whatever events are happening in the world, and whenever they are in the world, of course, locally, and whenever they are sort of more turmoilish, let's put it this way, or shakes the establishments or shakes the set of beliefs, I always like that little cartoon character. I just have to say something. And I'm telling myself, no, you cannot say anything. First of all, you don't know what are the opinions of other people that you are around, and you may greatly insult somebody expressing your opinion. So if for not anything else, just preserve somebody else's feelings. So yeah, I do have to. So far, I do not believe the only time I expressed my opinion when I said that I'm very distressed by the war, but that wasn't my opinion, that was my personal, the effect on me. And I was distressed because of, my beliefs, but I did not express that. And I'm not going to express that. And it's good to have the tradition, because without it, we probably could have a shouting match here. One would be defending one opinion, another would be defending another opinion, and just, and you will never bring everybody together. Especially because we're united by the fact that we are trying to put our lives in order, and because we have this common illness which does not discriminate. And the only thing that discriminates, we don't see Brad Pitt joining our meeting, but well, he can't, he's a male. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, Raza. Thanks for sharing all that with us. And Laurie, do you want to share with us, or are you quite happy listening? Laurie? Sleeping there?
No, sorry, I didn't hear you say my name. Yeah, actually, I I had not studied the traditions very much at all. And I was sitting one day in my home group meeting. This has been very, very, I mean, I'm still early in my sobriety, 2.5 years, but this was probably within the first maybe 9 months. And there were some things that were going on worldwide. And and somebody brought that up in a meeting, and they're sharing. And one of the other women, basically called her out, essentially called her out on the tradition, and that she was bringing in an outside issue. And of course, she got very upset and left the meeting before it even finished. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? Like, but that was interesting. And then, I asked the girl who called her out afterwards, after the meeting was over. I just kind of asked her, I was like, I'm still new. Like, what happened? Because I didn't quite understand. And when she explained it to me, I went back and I read, and I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I've seen that in action, and that was kind of interesting. But I could see where it would definitely cause an issue. And to, speaking on using the term, I guess, we, she was also using that term while she was sharing about that issue, was also a problem. But anyway, that's what I have. Thank you so much, Jill, for taking this meeting, and Karen for doing all of your studying and everything. I'm really grateful to have this meeting to go to every week. So thank you.
Thanks, Laurie. Thanks very much. And thanks everybody for your input in Tradition 10. It's been really helpful, because I'm like you, Laurie, I'm only around 2.5 years as well. So it was nice of Tuija to trust me to take the meeting, and I'm very grateful for that. And she also asked me to mention that there's a survey that she's put on to the group chat about what to do next. And she's made a decision from the survey, and that it will be the concepts. She's going to go through the concepts next. There'll be, after Tradition 12, there'll be a 3-week break, like the last time, and then we'll go on to the concepts. So just to let everybody know. And I think we'll close the meeting with the responsibility statement. See if I can get it again back up. There we go. And responsibility. So if you'd like to join me in the responsibility statement. I am responsible when anyone, anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of EE always to be there, and for that, I am responsible.
Thanks, everybody. Great meeting.
Thanks very much, everybody. You'll get Tuija back next week.
Yes, thank you.
Do you have somebody to do Tradition 11? I know last week she was asking about it. Do you know?
Tradition 11, was it Deanna? Was it you? You did Tradition 11? No?
Well, last week she asked if somebody would pick it up. I was just wondering if anybody knew if anybody did.
Oh, she did. No, she said she was just going to do it.
Tuija definitely asked, but I say in my head sometimes I know that it was asked, but I'm not really sure which tradition was asked. And we
could put a wee message in the chat and ask if she's got somebody for that then.
Okay.
Because I know I'm doing 12, so.
Thank you, Jill, for today. I forgot to thank you. I'm sorry, and thank you all, ladies, for I've just learned so much from all the shares back as well. It's just lots of things that I hadn't considered. So thank you all.
Better stop the recording. I'll be recording